What if, in the dead of night, your innocent baby was stolen and replaced by a ghost baby? A monster wearing the flesh of your child. It sits in the cradle, staring at you with cold, ancient eyes. It smiles, but its smile holds a hunger that is not human. Would you notice the change before it was too late? Or would you welcome the demon into your home? This is the terrifying reality of the changeling. And our journey into the dark forest begins right now. In a valley wrapped in endless mist, far from the map of any known kingdom, lived a young couple. Their life was quiet, peaceful. They lived in a small wooden cottage, built near the edge of an ancient, dark forest. The forest was an old entity, holding secrets that belonged to a time before humans. The trees grew tall and thick, their branches weaving together like skeletal fingers, blocking out the sun. The couple had recently been blessed. A child was born, a beautiful baby boy. His arrival brought a warm light into the lonely valley. But the forest was always watching. One late afternoon, the sky turned from a dull gray into an absolute black. The air grew heavy, pressing down on the valley with a suffocating weight. The wind began to howl through the ancient trees, a sound like thousands of angry ghosts screaming in the dark. A blizzard of rain and shadows had arrived. A storm so violent that it shook the very foundations of their wooden home. Inside, the mother clutched her baby tight against her chest. The fire in the hearth flickered wildly, casting long, dancing shadows across the wooden walls. She felt a sudden, chilling draft, a coldness that did not come from the window, but seemed to rise from beneath the floorboards. The boundary between their world and the hidden ones was tearing open. In the dead of night, the storm suddenly stopped. The howling wind died down, leaving a silence that was heavy, unnatural. It was the silence of a graveyard. The mother, exhausted from the fear, fell into a deep, uneasy sleep. When the morning light finally broke through the fog, the atmosphere in the cottage had changed. It was cold, a deep, unnatural chill that the morning sun could not reach. The mother woke up with a sudden start. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, driven by a primal, unspoken dread. The house was completely still. Too still. She stood up, her bare feet cold against the wooden floor. She walked toward the wooden cradle, where her baby boy slept. She looked inside, and her breath froze in her throat. The baby was there. He wore the same clothes. He had the same face. But he was different. The child lay completely still, his tiny body stiff, like marble carved from ice. There was no gentle rise and fall of his chest. No soft, warm breathing of an innocent child. Suddenly, the baby opened his eyes. The mother backed away, a gasp trapped in her chest. The eyes were not the bright, curious eyes of her son. They were dark, deep, piercingly cold. They held a look of ancient intelligence, a gaze that felt hundreds of years old. The creature in the cradle looked at her, not with the love of a child, but with a cold, calculating hunger. As the days went by, the horror only grew. The baby did not cry. He did not laugh. He only made a low, rhythmic humming sound, like the wind blowing through hollow bones. And his hunger was a bottomless void. He ate everything the mother prepared, devouring food with a desperate, monstrous speed. Yet, his body remained thin, his skin turning a dull, lifeless gray. Every time the mother touched his flesh, it felt like ice. The husband tried to comfort her, convincing himself that the boy was simply ill. But a mother's intuition cannot be deceived. Her heart knew what her mind was too terrified to accept. The sacred bond had been broken. The warm, sweet boy she had carried in her womb was gone. The thing sitting in the cradle was a placeholder, a spy from the dark, a ghost baby left behind by the entity of the forest. The mother stood by the window, watching the dark tree line. The forest seemed closer now, its shadows creeping toward her door. She realized she was living with a monster, and she knew she had to find a way to get her real child back before the ice in the cradle claimed her home forever. The cottage, once a place of joy, had become a prison of cold silence. The husband spent longer hours in the fields, fleeing the heavy, suffocating dread that hung over the cradle. The mother was left alone, trapped with a creature that wore her son's face, but looked at her with the eyes of a dead thing. She could not take it anymore. The low, rhythmic humming of the child was driving her to the edge of madness. On a gray, fog-heavy morning, she wrapped her shawl tight and walked to the farthest edge of the valley. There, in a hut covered in dried herbs and ancient roots, lived an old woman, a healer who knew the things that the village people were too afraid to whisper. The old woman listened to the mother's story, her wrinkled face hardening with every word. She did not look surprised. She looked deeply sorrowful. "Your child is gone," the old woman whispered, her voice like dry leaves scraping against stone. "The forest has taken its due. What sits in your cradle is a changeling, an empty shell woven from shadows and old magic, left behind by the spirits to deceive you." The mother's heart shattered. She fell to her knees, clutching the old woman's robes. "How do I get him back?" she cried, her voice breaking. "There must be a way, a mother's blood must have a way." The old woman reached into a dark wooden box, pulling out a small bundle of black candles and a dry, twisted root of wild briar. The entities of the forest are old, but they are proud. The old woman warned, leaning closer. They cannot stand the sight of human foolishness, and they cannot bear the smell of the briar fire. If you want the monster to reveal its true face, you must trick it. She placed the root into the mother's trembling hands. "Tonight, when the moon is hidden behind the clouds, you must place a pot of water over your hearth. Do not cook food. Instead, take clean eggshells, fill them with water, and place them in the boiling pot as if you are cooking them. The changeling is ancient. It has seen kingdoms rise and fall. When it sees you doing something so absurd, its pride will break. It will speak with its real voice." The old woman's eyes turned sharp, grabbing the mother's wrist with surprising strength. "But beware, the moment it speaks, its illusion will shatter. The entity will become aggressive. You must light the wild briar root in the fire. The smoke will burn its spirit, forcing it to flee back to the woods. Follow the trail of frost it leaves behind. It will lead you to the place where your real sun is hidden. But you must be strong. If your heart hesitates for even a second, the forest will keep you both forever. The mother walked back to her cottage, the twisted root heavy in her pocket. The sun was setting, casting long, blood-red shadows across the snow. Inside the house, the room was freezing. The humming from the cradle had grown louder, sharper, sounding almost like a mocking laugh. The creature knew that she had gone to seek help. It was waiting for her. She looked at the wooden cradle, then at the cold hearth. Her hands were shaking, but her heart was burning with a fierce, unstoppable desperation. The battle for her son's soul was about to begin in the dead of the night. The midnight hour arrived, heavy and black. The husband was fast asleep, trapped in a deep, unnatural slumber that seemed to drift from the cradle itself. The mother stood alone in the dark kitchen. The only light came from the faint, amber glow of the dying embers in the hearth. In the corner, the low, rhythmic humming continued. It was sharper now, piercing. The mother took a deep breath, clearing her mind of fear. She placed a large iron pot of water over the fire. Then, with trembling fingers, she took the empty eggshells she had gathered, filled them with water, and dropped them into the boiling pot. She began to stir the shells slowly, pretending to cook a meal with absolute seriousness. For several minutes, there was only the sound of bubbling water. Then, the humming in the cradle suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. The mother kept her back turned, stirring the eggshells, her heart hammering against her ribs. She heard a soft, wet sound, the sound of blankets being pushed aside. The creature was climbing out of the cradle. Slowly, the sound of tiny, cold feet padded across the wooden floor. It stopped right behind her. The air in the kitchen turned so freezing that the mother's breath came out in thick, white clouds. "What are you doing, Mother?" The voice did not come from a baby. It was a dual voice, a horrific mix of a child's tone and a deep, gravelly echo that belonged to something ancient and dead. The mother did not turn around. She kept stirring. "I am cooking eggshells, my child," she answered, her voice remarkably steady. "I am brewing a meal from the shells to feed our family." A sharp, hideous gasp came from behind her. The pride of the ancient entity had broken. It could not contain its amusement at human foolishness. "I have lived for 1,500 years." The creature shouted, its voice splitting into a harsh, demonic screech. "I have seen kingdoms rise and fall. I have seen oceans turn to dust. But never, in all my centuries, have I seen a foolish human cook a meal out of eggshells." The illusion was shattered. The mother turned around slowly, and her stomach twisted in horror. The beautiful face of her baby was melting away like warm wax. The creature standing before her was twisted and thin, its skin gray as ash, its arms elongated with long, claw-like fingers. Its eyes were pure voids of darkness, staring at her with malicious glee. It realized it had been tricked. With a wild howl, the monster lunged toward her, its claws reaching for her throat. But the mother was faster. She reached into her pocket, grabbed the dry, twisted root of wild briar, and threw it directly into the boiling hearth. The wood caught fire instantly. A thick, blinding white smoke erupted from the hearth, filling the small kitchen. The smoke carried a scent that was sweet yet burning. The monster shrieked. It was a sound of pure agony. The smoke of the briar burned its non-human flesh like acid. It thrashed wildly, tearing at its own face, unable to bear the presence of the sacred root. With one final, desperate howl, the creature leaped through the glass window, shattering it into 1,000 pieces, and vanished into the dark night. The mother did not hesitate. She grabbed a lantern, stepped through the broken window, and ran out into the freezing cold. On the white snow, lit by the pale moonlight, was a clear trail. It wasn't a trail of footprints. It was a trail of silver frost, freezing the grass and turning the dirt into solid ice wherever the monster had fled. The trail led straight into the heart of the ancient, dark forest. The trees loomed over her, but she did not look back. She ran into the shadows, chasing the frost, to claim what belonged to her. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows, but the mother did not slow down. Her boots crunched against the frozen snow, her breath coming in heavy, ragged gasps. The lantern in her hand flickered wildly, casting weak, dancing circles of light against the massive, black trunks of the ancient trees. She followed the trail of silver frost, inch by inch, deeper into the heart of the woods than any human had ever dared to go. The wind hissed through the branches above, a sound that felt like whispering voices, trying to turn her back. The forest was angry. It was losing its grip on the deception. But a mother's love is a primal force, older and stronger than the ancient magic of the woods. It was a burning fire in her chest, deflecting the coldness of the night. Suddenly, the trail of frost ended. She burst into a small, hidden clearing. In the center, beneath the branches of a colossal, dead oak tree, was a mound of soft, green moss. And there, wrapped in a blanket of dried leaves, lay her baby boy. He was breathing. His chest rose and fell in a gentle, warm rhythm. His skin was no longer cold like marble, but soft, flushed with the natural warmth of life. He was fast asleep, untouched by the terrors of the night, protected by the residual innocence of his soul. The mother dropped her lantern. She fell to her knees, pulling her true son into her arms. She clutched him tight against her heart, tears of pure, overwhelming relief streaming down her face. He was warm. He was real. Her boy had come home. A low, resentful growl echoed from the deep shadows behind the oak tree. The mother looked up, her eyes flashing with a fierce, protective anger. In the darkness, she saw the twisted silhouette of the changeling. Its empty, black voids of eyes stared at her, filled with bitterness and defeat. Its gray flesh still smoked from the wild briar fire, but it did not step forward. It knew that its power was completely broken. The illusion was dead, and it could no longer exist in the presence of true, unconditional love. With a final, hollow sigh, the creature dissolved into the dark mist, vanishing into the roots of the ancient tree. The forest surrendered. The walk back to the cottage was peaceful. As the mother stepped out of the tree line, the first rays of the morning sun began to break through the heavy fog. The light was not gray and cold. It was a beautiful, warm gold, painting the snow in shades of amber and rose. She walked through the door of her home. The unnatural chill was entirely gone. The kitchen was warm, smelling of wood smoke and safety. Her husband was waking up, the dark slumber lifted from his eyes, looking at his wife and child with a soft, confused smile. The shadow had been cast out. The cradle was now just a cradle. Warm, safe, empty, because the baby was now resting safely in his mother's arms. The earth is quiet tonight. The ancient forest has retreated into the deep darkness, its secrets locked away beneath the roots of the old oak. The wind no longer howls. It whispers a gentle, low lullaby through the quiet valley, bringing an absolute, eternal peace to the small wooden cottage. Close your eyes now. The monster is gone. The illusion has shattered, and only the truth of love remains. The room around you is filled with a deep, heavy warmth. The ground beneath you is solid and real and safe. The shadows have faded into the night, leaving only the calm, rhythmic breathing of a peaceful world. Let your mind drift. The light has returned, the journey is over, and the night is at rest. Sleep now. You are safe. The baby is home.